guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel, and most importantly, getting into the chat and letting me know what you guys are thinking about this most recent Arsenal news. There's nothing really that new happening, but I did want to make sure that I came on and I need to talk to you guys about everything that's happening. Even besides Arsenal, this is one of the craziest transfer windows I think I've ever experienced in my life. Genuinely, the craziest transfer window I've ever experienced. This is unprecedented, in terms of just the amount of deals, the fees attached to those deals, the striker merry-go-round. It's just bananas. It is bananas. The amount of players people are buying. Wow, 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 wow. As a football fan, just in general, I am very excited to see how all of this unfolds, and see how the players that we're buying measure up against, some of the best in the league. In particular, I'm ecstatic to see how Zubamendi measures up against Gravenberch and Rodri and, Caicedo and players like that. I am over the moon about seeing how Gyokeres is going to fare against, João Pedro and Holland and Isak and all of that. So this is just, I just have this deep feeling in my core that this is about to be one of the most exciting Premier League seasons in a long time, and especially at the top of the table. I think there'll be a sneak. I do think there'll be somebody that we're not thinking about right now that will get their way up into, the Champions League conversation. But ultimately, just the way that Liverpool, City, Chelsea, and Arsenal have been going about this market, I really don't know how anybody else is going to compete. It's just looking dark, really. But we were talking on Judge Mo's show about, the Isak situation and how that, paints maybe a light on Arsenal's window. In isolation, our window is not bad. It still needs stuff, but it's not bad. But with Isak potentially going to Liverpool, and they've already grabbed Ekitike, and worse, does that mean that we can't compete, that our window is just not good enough, and this and that? And I was really, really honest about how I felt about the whole thing. I actually really think Isak is a really good player, and I would never say that he's not. I can like a player, but also not be enamored with them. And I do feel like this fan base is very enamored with this one player. And he was never, outside of him going from Sociedad to the Premier League and us turning down that opportunity, there was never a time where I actually felt like he was coming to us. And so I've always kind of just said, whatever, I really don't care. And I'm a big advocate of, I only want players that are desperate to play for us. And I don't ever really feel like he was desperate to play for us, if I'm honest. Now, there are some reports saying that from in the know, saying that he really wanted to come to us and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we know what it looks like when you really want to play for Arsenal. We've seen multiple players and how they've moved, in transfer windows to get to Arsenal. We've seen Declan Rice in the way that he moved, made it very clear he only wants to go to Arsenal. He wants to leave West Ham and come to Arsenal. We've seen it with Gyokeres. I want to leave and I want to play for Arsenal. Honestly, Isak has never really given that, and I still have huge doubts on whether or not Newcastle would have, stopped us or been very pushing against us in particular buying him. So for me, there's really nothing about him going to Liverpool that makes me think badly on our players and what we've gotten. Now, it does strengthen Liverpool and all that kind of stuff, but I'm happy with what I have. And I think it was Josh that said in the chat that we cannot even celebrate Gyokeres. Speak for yourself. I definitely celebrated Gyokeres this morning when I saw that tweet that said it was 100% done and he was doing his medical in the next 24 hours. I did celebrate. because I'm heavily focused on players that want to play for us. Arsenal, in isolation, whether you like Isak or not, needs a striker that's going to score 20, 25 goals. And I believe Gyökeres can do that for us. So as long as that's what we get, I'm not really concerned about this Isak guy that just because some people said that he was similar to Henri, we have to have him. So nothing is going to stop me from celebrating getting a goal scorer after 7 years of not having a real one. And so I think that's the problem. Arsenal fans cannot celebrate Gyökeres. Some cannot celebrate Gyökeres because they wanted Isak so badly, but he never made it super obvious that he wanted to come to us. Like it doesn't, it is what it is. And I'm with I'm Gyökeres Nation. That is the player that we bought. That is the player that we had. And even if we had waited, on Isak, Liverpool were still going to be in for him. And so if it were the case that they could outspend us, which is probably the case, they seem like they have a lot of money available, then if we missed out on him and Newcastle got Ekitike, and in the meantime, Gyökeres wanted to go somewhere else, so he went to United instead and didn't wait for us, we might end up with nothing, So to me, it's just a little bit like, I don't think people fully think through this whole, we should have just waited. We should have just got Isak. What do you mean? Da, da, da. It's like we still could have lost out to him against Liverpool, who really want him. And if he had went to them and we were just sitting there with a zero, you guys would be, well, why don't we just go for Gyökeres? It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. But at least we have a really good striker. And I really don't understand the level of obsession with this one player. I get like a strong like or a preference, but I do kind of think that it's veering into obsession, so much so that people are saying no matter how well Gyökeres does, it won't matter because we could have gotten Isak. And I'm like, all right, we're talking about straight jackets, we're talking about padded rooms, we're talking about psychological evaluations now. This fan base needs to touch grass. We've literally signed one of the best strikers in Europe, and because a different striker that kind of plays similar to Henri is going somewhere else, they just cannot let it go. And I'm going to be really, really honest. Nobody plays like Thierry Henry. If you've seen him with your own eyes, even Isak, as good as he is, he's nowhere near Thierry Henry levels. So, yeah. Tashima says, Rodrigo, I expect a bid now. It's the Henry comparison. They can't just let him go. Big up, Jazz. Let's see. Gyökeres announcement tomorrow evening. Gyökeres is brilliant, but right now we do not have enough in our attack. This is from wasting windows and not fully maximizing them and neglecting our attack for so long. I mean, that's a completely different conversation, which I do agree that we need more. And if we do get a left wing or Eze, I do feel like we can look at our window and think that it's a successful window. Now, I get that Liverpool are doing a madness. Arsenal could probably do a lot more, but my expectation at the beginning of the window was 2-3 top level attackers, especially the two that are going to be starting, the left wing or the striker, Zubamendi, and then fill in the rest, backup goalkeeper, defender, blah, blah, blah. So we've pretty much like covered those things. And I also said this on Judge Mo's channel, which I think you guys should go back and watch that show. It was hilarious. We had so much fun, but there's never been a team that's done a quad, and maybe this Liverpool super team does a quad, but I just don't think that, maybe they have a monopoly over the Premier League, but if City's best team has not won a quad, then there's always the opportunity to win a trophy. And so we should still feel like we're more within our capacity to win something. And, feel confident and excited that Arsenal can bring home silverware. Now, we know there's a specific type of silverware that needs to be won because we haven't won it in a long time. But I really don't want to go through this season and people, oh, we can't win anything, because no, we can still win stuff. We can still win stuff. We went up against a treble, City side and finished 2 points behind them with no striker. I expect us to be incredibly competitive with this Liverpool side. And I'm not really hearing all this. Well, there's just nothing we can do, and da da da. Da." It's like, all right, guys, if whatever. Not gonna lie, now Liverpool really came out the winner of the whole bullying thing now when they took Ekatike for real. And Newcastle, I will say that, I know it's difficult to keep a player once they've agitated and made it kind of obvious that they want to go, but they really should have figured out how serious Isak was about wanting to go prior to giving up their pursuit on Ekatike, because I do think that if Newcastle does end up selling Isak to Liverpool, they could have still gotten Ekatike, but now they can't. Now they're actually interested in getting Sesko now, which I think is really interesting because now we'll get to see Gyökeres versus Isak, and also Gyökeres versus Sesko, and we'll all be in the Champions League, and everybody has a strong side. So we'll get to see where each striker kind of, lives up to each other. The one team that's not, that's really struggling is Manchester United, and I can't lie, I'm living for it. Um, they actually thought that they were going to get Sesko probably all the way up until this morning. This news about Newcastle accelerating in the Sesko deal means that now that Aston Villa said that they won't sell Ollie Watkins, they literally are not getting anybody. To think that losing to Spurs in a Europa League final has manifested into a summer window where they may not even be able to beat Newcastle to targets is because Newcastle have been losing to everybody with targets. Chelsea, Liverpool, everything. Everybody that they've wanted, they've had it snatched. But United can't even compete with Newcastle. Like, it's crazy. So this is a really interesting time that I think, just as a genuinely as a football fan, I am so excited about this new season and seeing how everybody goes up against each other. But Arsenal still have plenty of work to do. They really need to bring in one or two more attackers, to be honest. And all this news about, oh, we have no PSR issues. Oh, we're super profitable. Oh, we do have money for Isak, and we also had money for Gahey and Hoyson. If that's the case, then I don't want to really hear about selling Trossard in order to get Eze. I don't want to hear about needing to sell to get a left wing. Putting all of that out there just not to get anything because you can't sell is a slap in the face to the fans. And so, to be honest, I feel like we should be expecting, if not demanding, more in this window. I know they'll do what they want to do, but we should be unsatisfied if we don't get anything, because they have gone to so much lengths to tell us that they have money. And so if you have money, I don't want to hear about needing to sell, right? You were willing to spend the release clause for a center back that doesn't start for us. You wanted to spend 50 million on Hoyson. He doesn't start for us, but you wanted to spend that money. So why not spend the release clause on Eze? I'm not hearing you right now. You have, negotiated to the nth degree for Gyokeres to make sure that that deal was incredibly cheap. Mosquera was cheap. Kepa was cheap. Norgard was cheap. So if you have the money, I don't want to hear about having to sell. Hearing those words just grinds my gears when you guys are constantly going to the media and talking about how profitable you are. You didn't really buy enough last summer and you sold more than you bought. So you don't have any problems. So you need to buy more. And even Madueke didn't fuck it up, because we're playing on Klarna with Madueke. We didn't have to pay a lot up front, which is a big reason why we've gone for him. So we have the money. If they want to, it's just like, the old saying, if he wanted to, he would. It's true. If the Cronkies wanted to, they would. I really don't believe that this whole Madueke deal is the reason why we can't get anything else. I don't. I think they don't want to. We still don't have PSR issues. They have money for Isak. They had money for Hoyson. How much do you genuinely think we paid up front for Madueke? Probably nothing. That's why we deal with Chelsea because they give us good terms. So I'm not trying to hear we need to sell. They really need to go out there and get more. Um, we're still going to be, I feel like we're in a good place to be competitive, and we've improved to a certain extent. Zubamendi was excellent yesterday, and if that's any, indication of what he's going to bring to the team, that's great. But just the striker is not enough. You need to go out there and get more than that. I don't want to hear any excuses about league quality, this and that player. Men are spending 100 M's and player half quarter the price delivering the same. If we don't get Eze, I'm checking out early. I'm mostly worried about what we do in the market. If I worry about others, I'll lose my head. Frankly, we haven't done enough in the market, which concerns me. About 205 spent so far. That's not enough. We can get Eze and Rodrigo for a combined 125 million. 330 million summer is what we need. I think the main reason why we need that is because we didn't do anything last summer. So Liverpool didn't spend last summer. So whatever they should have spent last summer, they are putting that on top of what they're spending this summer. Arsenal are the opposite. They didn't do anything last summer, so they're giving just about enough this summer. And it's like, no, you need to add, because we basically sat still for an entire summer window, and we paid for it dearly. And I don't feel like we're asking for too much either. I'm not saying that we need to go out there and get 4 or 5 more players. I'm saying that you came into this window and you said, like, Arsenal laid it out very clearly that a left wing was really important to this window. And we haven't gotten one. Madueke, I don't know what level he's at. I'm really finding it very difficult to really get a clean grasp on how I feel about the player because I'm still very confused about why we've went in this direction. But I would say at this stage, I don't feel like he's an upgrade. So you still need to go out and get that player. And if it ends up being the case that because you've gotten Madueke and you feel like he can play on the left, that you can now get a more versatile player, I can accept that, but you need to go get that player. You need to get Eze. Seriously, he's dying for it. He's already doing personal terms. He's told Bayern and Chelsea he only wants Arsenal. So, and if Arteta has already went out and told the Cronkies that we need more money, that has to be for the money to get Eze or more. Because if Arteta has already begged for money and this is all we end up getting, what were they planning on giving from the beginning? So I have to assume that Arteta is begging for more on top of what we did, because what we've done so far is the bare minimum, if I'm honest. Backup goalkeeper, backup DM, backup center back. Those are all good signings, and I'm okay with that. But the real business we know is in attacking mid and up front. And you've barely scratched the surface of that with Gyokeres. So yeah, if Arteta's begged and then nothing else happens, but he was successful, then that means that they were going to give even less, which is ridiculous. All of this is really based upon the constant briefs about how much money we have and how profitable we are, on top of the fact that they didn't spend anything last summer, really. So my expectation is that we get more now. We're not done in the window. We can't be done in the window. Sorry. And I don't always like looking around and seeing what other people are doing and saying, okay, so now you need to get more. But even without looking at what everybody else is doing, it still feels like we're short. So I want Eze and Rodrigo. Rodrigo may even on a loan with an option. I don't even think that Rodrigo is an option anymore. I would imagine if anything, that came out from Romain Molina the other day is true, that Arsenal would be completely put off by that. But there's still other options in the market. And even as somebody that's not the biggest Leao fan, I would more than happily take him and Eze instead of just keeping things the same. I just don't think we have an option to just stand still. So if you can't get Rodrigo, there's still other options in the market and you need to go get them. You can't just stand still. 5 weeks left of the window. Why is everybody going on like the window closes in 3 days? Anxiety is at an all-time high with you lot shaking my head. I mean, if that's your thought process, then fair enough. I just think that I think if anything, this window has earned the level of anxiety and angst that is being displayed because it's kind of like, oh, if I'm in a relationship with somebody and they cheated on me so many times and then they go out of town and I'm anxious, my best friend's sitting there and say, "Why are you anxious? What do you mean? Like, he told you that he was gonna change." This is what I'm saying, it's like the trust is broken, and yes, we are kind of, like, in a relationship with Arsenal, and they have totally broken the trust from last summer, so it's really difficult for me to understand why there's this constant, like, "The window is still open. The window is still open. What are you upset about? What are you upset about? What are you upset about?" When we've seen a window where they completely shat the bed. So it's very strange to keep hearing this, but I understand that some people just cannot wrap their brain around the fact that Arsenal fans have a justifiable reason of being um, maybe having a lack of trust in the club. And they just don't have that. And that's fine. But I don't really, we just have to agree to disagree. You know, Liverpool going to buy another left winger, even if we buy Isak. They've been cheating on you guys for like 20 years now, praying for Isak to go anywhere but Liverpool. I think he is going to go to Liverpool. I can't stand people that talk about how long is left in the window. Haven't we been briefed numerous times that Arteta wanted attacking players before preseason? I mean, the whole last window, I feel like it's just a justifiable reason to feel not even last window, just last summer, last January. So it's just like the strangest thing. Like, they literally let our season crumble. They threw away an entire season where, let's be real, like Liverpool are having the 12 months that we were meant to have. We were meant to go into last summer and bring in two top quality attackers, and we ended up bringing in none. That single decision led to the injuries in multiple positions up front, and we scored about 20 less goals than we should have. We ended up finishing closer to third than we did to first. Liverpool, a team that didn't improve at all, walked the league, and now they're utilizing that trophy as a way to get new players that we would want into their team. They're having our time because Arsenal fucked up. So I'm not really hearing the whole, "Oh, well, there's still time in the window." It's like I'm just saying ahead of time that there is still time in the window, but I'm expecting them to do it. My expectation is that they will do it. And if they don't, then we should be upset. That's it. Period. End of story, But it always goes from, "Why are you upset?" to, "Oh, we have enough. I don't know why you guys are complaining. Like, Arsenal spent so much money. We're going to be okay. Last season before last, we had 91 goals. Oh, and last season it was just injuries. So what are you upset about?" It's like a very gradual, there's time, there's time, there's time, there's time. And then they fuck up. And then it's like, "Oh, well, what are you upset about? We're so good. Da, 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 da." And then we don't win anything. And then it starts all over the next summer. How has there been more dramatic summer window? Jess, does Love Island even come close to this drama? Yeah, it does. Love Island has been peak. Like, this has been the best Love Island UK in years. So yes, it's up there. But this is just, I could not have predicted the level of spending and the amount of aggression that has come from certain teams. Like, Liverpool have been known for being cheap, and I remember sitting with Hussam and other, Liverpool fans, and they're, "Oh, FSG and the Cronkies are so cheap, so cheap." But if this ever happened for Arsenal, I think I'd be in tears because I've never seen my club invest in the players and the team as much as they have. Now, they've also had an outstanding, like, unprecedented kind of situation with the unfortunate passing of Diego Jota, which I think also is coming into play here because not only as crass as this may sound, do they need to replace that player in their team? But equally, I think that there's an emphasis on trying to bring up the spirits from Liverpool fans and bringing in new players to kind of keep the sadness away. I do think there's an element of that. But if Arsenal ever did what they're doing, I think I would just simply pass away because I would not be able to believe that this is my club. Because Arsenal just don't operate like this. They don't operate like that, So um it's just crazy. Chelsea are also spending a lot. They're spending in a different way though. They're spending a lot on high quality young talent. And so I think that that's a very useful strategy because even if it doesn't work out, there's always going to be people that are willing to buy your shit because Arsenal is always willing to, you know, shop in your bins. But then bringing in Hato, which is a player that I think a lot of you guys wanted, including me to a certain extent, and Xavi Simmons is a definite sign of ambition, I would say. And then you have City, who early in the window went for Reinders and Cherky, and I do feel like an Ait Nuri, and I think it's almost being overlooked because it happened so long ago, but those are really good players as well. They're getting Rodri back. Arsenal are probably 1/2 players away, for me to have a window that is kind of like going with those windows, but the window's not closed, but Arsenal have to do it. They have to do it, and I'm not 100% sure that they will, because I know my club. My club will find any reason not to bring in a top quality attacking player. Uh, so yeah, um, but I am excited about, oddly enough, Mosquera. I feel like that is a very smart signing for us. To me, it never really made sense to spend 50 million release clause on Hoyson. Now he didn't end up choosing us, but had he chosen us, we would have spent 50 million pounds on a release clause for a player that doesn't start for us when our attack is down on its knees. So the priorities of this club are very clear that they they really prioritize defense way more than they do attack, and they need to start, you know, they need to get up to speed. You have done more than enough in defense. Mosquera is the exact type of signing that we should be making. He's not too expensive, but he's going to be a good deputy for Gabriel/Saliba. So you are making sure that you're protecting, in particular, Saliba, who had a season where he literally could not sit down. Um, and 13 million to me is so much smarter than a 50 million release clause, no matter how good Hoyson is. Hoyson is a fantastic player, but he doesn't start for us. And neither does Gahey. So take that level of prioritization and obsession with defense and put that into the attack and spend whatever you're going to spend on release clause for Hoyson and spend it on Eze. It's important. Mosquera is simply the Saliba succession plan when he dips. City being silent isn't a good sign. What are you doing, honey? Being silent isn't a good sign, as if they're letting everyone forget about them. They bulldoze the league next season. Their signings are arguably better than Liverpool's. Are they? Let's think. Because I was thinking about this too, because I was like, I do feel like it's a little bit of recency bias. I do think that all in all, the one thing that City are struggling with is their defense. I don't think their defense is on par with everyone else's. I think Ederson's head is gone. I know they're Trafford, but it's Trafford. Um, Nunez, to my understanding, is still their primary right back, and he's a midfielder. Then you have Nori, who's a top player in possession, but out of possession, not so much. Then you have that Kuzminov guy who is that? And then you have, who's the other player? Gvardiol or Ruben Diaz or something like that. I'm really feeling like that defense needs some work, but um outside of that, I don't know where people are getting Ekitike as like this superstar when Marmoush was clearly the better of the two. And once he left, Ekitike was like didn't score another goal for like the rest of the season. I think people are sleeping on Marmoush for sure. Holland, I'm hearing Eze is a much better striker than Holland. That's not true. Isak is more well-rounded and better to watch, but there's no real competition, in my opinion, between who's the better goal scorer, which is the primary function of a striker. Holland is oddly underrated for some reason now, and I just don't really get that. Um, my main thing with City now is that they've made Bernardo Silva their captain, which means that he's going to play a lot more than he probably should, which means less minutes for somebody like Cherki, who should be getting a lot more minutes, and was one of my main reasons for feeling like City were going to play a lot better, is they were going to bring in kind of like this maverick, creative, phenomenal player, and they're going to be stuck with Bernardo Silva in that starting 11. So yeah, of course, they're still a good team, but I do think they have more questions than Liverpool do, because when you look at Liverpool, strong, strong, strong defense. When you look at their midfield, strong, strong, strong midfield. And then when you look at the attack, strong, strong, strong attack. But City are definitely not going to be as bad as they were last season. That's for sure. Dexter, hey, Jess, will you take Isak over Eze? No, no, I won't. I actually think it's better for Arsenal to have multiple players. We're not in the position to just buy one player. And if you needed to spend 150 million on Isak, several other players that we've gotten, we would not have been able to get. So, yeah, for me, because we've sat still for too long, I think it's almost impossible for us to spend all that money on one player. I'd rather Gyokeres plus Eze or Gyokeres plus a winger or something like that versus just Isak, because I know it may not happen for Liverpool, but it'll happen for us. He'll get injured for us, and then we'll be watching Havertz again. Let's see. You take Isak if you can. Not necessarily, not in the situation that we're in, because I'm thinking about it logically. If we've already spent 150 million on an attacker, that's most likely going to be it. That's most likely going to be it for us. We may have gotten Zubamendi as well, because he was 60 million. So that's the whole budget there, gone. And so we needed more than that, in my opinion. But, some people would have taken Isak. As long as we get the 20 additional goals, I don't really care who it comes from. I think people are more concerned about who it's coming from rather than if it's coming or not. And that's the problem. I take Rodrigo plus Eze over Isak 1,000%. Isak is the one we could have gotten. We all would. 20 million 3 times years is what's been discussed with Crystal Palace, and we need to pay it. We need to pay it. Isak and Gyokeres play together for Sweden. We can dream of a front three with Saka. The dream's over. He's definitely going to Liverpool. The Isak train sailed for me already as a Gyokeres and a left wing instead of Isak. It's just I've never seen a fan base obsess over a player so much, and I get the Henry angle, but yeah, I don't know. I'll be really honest. I feel like it's more it's not really built around logic. It's just built around this idea that he's just like Thierry Henry and he's going to bring back the vibes. Like, the vibes will be brought back if we win shit, and Gyokeres can help us win things. Like, we're a completely different Arsenal than we were back then. And I know that we're hyper attached to who we were in the past and, the recipes of the past. Remember, the recipes from the past were go, make Arsenal black again, French young talent, Thierry Henry-like players. And so we're super attached to that, especially because we haven't won anything since then. But I promise you, if we actually start winning things, and Gyokeres is not going to stop us from winning anything, we'll let go of all these things, because I personally want to move forward. I don't want the last, vision or thing that I think about when I think about Arsenal to be the Invincibles. I'd rather it be this team plus a really good striker and we move forward, but that's just me. I don't think Isak is that similar to Henry, maybe like 25%. He's He's literally nothing. Like, to me, when I hear it, I'm just like, I cringe because it's it's just, if you ever watched Thierry Henry, you realize how disrespectful this is. He's he's really a talented player, I'll say that for sure. But when we say like Thierry Henry or reminds me of Thierry Henry, do you guys not understand that Thierry Henry was like, he was fucking fake. He was so fake. Like, he was just he the assist numbers matched up with the actual goal numbers. It was just sick. Like, it was, yeah, but whatever, man. It is what it is. Maybe it was because it's so far away that people don't actually remember. Yeah, Henri was in a different planet. Um, I think it's just aesthetically, not in terms of quality or numbers, and it's like, I'm not picking a player just solely based on aesthetics. I just want goals in my team, and we had one particular player that moved heaven and earth to be at this club that does give you goals and gives us a new dynamic. And so I'd much prefer focus on that player than constantly be pining for somebody who never once went out of their way to try to make a deal happen for us. Remember, Isak is only agitating because Liverpool has turned his head. That's it. So now maybe there's a maybe there's an element of, maybe if we had went harder, he would have maybe agitated, but I've never got the feeling that he wanted to come to us. I'll be honest. So let's see. Hot take: aesthetics matter. They do matter to a certain extent, but I don't actually think that in our position right now, we need to be super worried about aesthetics in terms of he looks like Henri when he plays. I think the main thing we need to focus on is he going to score the goals when we're at, St. James, or when we're at Villa Park and we just need one flipping goal? Are they going to score that goal? We're playing against Bayern at the Allianz Arena. Are they going to score a goal when we go to the Etihad? Are they going to score a goal? Like, I feel like that's really where we're at. We could play better football, and it'd be nice to have more flair players in this team. But ultimately, we've gotten what we've needed. And so, yeah, I do think people have an unnatural obsession with this player. I really do. And I think they need to let it go for their own mental health, because it's giving obsession. Like I said, it's giving straight jacket, it's giving padded room. You know, if everything that link is true, then I believe we need Rodrigo and Eze. Eze is a need for me now. Why do you think Liverpool will get him? They would have to spend 500 million. I think their owner colluded with Trump when the market crashed. No, I think Liverpool, they didn't spend last summer at all. I don't know if people forget that, but they didn't spend at all last summer. So whatever budget that they would have had then, um, is being used now, plus whatever budget they were already going to have for this summer, plus the fact that they sell really well, plus the fact that all the winnings that they got, like the money, they were the most profitable club. They were more profitable than United. They're using everything to get the players in that they need. And it's like I'm saying, they're the opposite of what Arsenal are doing. Arsenal barely made money last summer by selling. And instead of using whatever they would have used last summer, they're keeping that money and then giving us some pittance for this summer. And then whatever they made for the Champions League, they just stick it in their pocket, you know? So, yeah, Liverpool can 100% spend that amount of money, because again, they're going to sell Luis Diaz for 70 million. They're going to sell Nunez as well. So they're going to get so much of that money back, probably even Harvey Elliott for like 40 million. Not only do they feel like they can front load and buy the players ahead of time, but they're so confident that they'll be able to sell that they don't feel like they need to wait. Liverpool are in a much better situation than Arsenal in terms of how we operate in the market. We operate like a small team. We have to, sell to buy. We have to like negotiate to the cent, because we cannot spend even smidgen more. We can't buy first and then sell after. We don't sell well. We operate like a small club. They unfortunately have operated like a big club in this window, and they're showing us levels. I don't there's nothing else I can understand more Arsenal fans being concerned about them blowing us away in the league than the obsession with Isak, because that to me is a bigger conversation than, oh my God, Isak's like Henri, we need him. Like Liverpool are operating in a way that I think makes Arsenal look like a small club. And they're an American-based ownership, which I said it's not really about being American. It's just, are you a good owner or not? Bowley is American as well, and they spend a lot of fucking money. It's not about being American. We just have cheap ass owners. That's just what it is. We're not in a bad position financially at all. We can't even say it's American owners don't spend, Cronkies are getting exposed. I always said that though. I was like, I get that it looks that way, but it's not that. It's really not. Bowley is not cheap. FSG is not really cheap. It's really Cronkies. Like it really is them. We couldn't have had a worse ownership if we tried. Did Liverpool act like a big club last summer? They didn't. But like I said, in this window, they are operating like a big club. So last summer was last summer. And to be honest, does it really matter? They won the league. They won the league. They won the league. And this summer, which is what I said, they're acting like a big club. And it does make Arsenal look a certain type of way because there's nobody that needed a bigger summer than us. They won the league, so yeah. PSC have turned us into a second tier club, basically. I mean, the fact that they're acting like they can't buy Eze and just sell the rest of the players later is wild to me. Liverpool will only be strong for one season. Arsenal 26-27 season will have no deadwood on their books, and it will be easy to let go of Jesus and Havertz if they want to. I mean, why will they only be strong for 26-27? They have young players coming in. Wirtz is young. Ekitike is young. Isak has his best years ahead of him. Both Frimpong and Kirkis are both very young. So I don't know if they just will only be strong for one season. Can we get stronger? Yes, but really this is the window to do it. Because you can't wait. You just don't know what will happen. And we need to be prepared for everything. We need to be prepared whether, they are really good or not. And I'm not quite sure I believe that they're just going to be good for one season. The only thing I'm kind of hoping is that they because they have so many new players coming in that are maybe going to be starters, that it disrupts them and makes them take time to settle. But that's pretty much the only thing I can really think of that can maybe hurt them. That's it, to be honest. So I don't know what you guys think about it, but that if I had to think of one devil's advocate, it's probably that. When City won the treble, hold on, there's like a fly in here. When City won the treble, they basically just plopped Holland into a team that was already pretty much set. But they'll be changing like 5 starters. So let's see. Oh my God, this fly is like flying around my head. It's killing me. We must hit the ground running with our first 6 games. It will most definitely set the tone for the rest of the season. After what happened last season, we cannot go into the season with those left wing options. I agree with that. Wirtz is going to be an all-timer for them, moving like some springy roadrunner. I don't agree with the cheap owner statement. The problem is Arsenal generates 0 money from player sales. Liverpool and Chelsea are light years ahead of us in that department. Our net spend is up there. Slot won the league after signing like 17 players once. I believe Liverpool will only go for either Rodrigo or Isak. Also, don't forget Arsenal win during this time of crazy transfer. We're going to make a statement. Madueke will be the left wing. I'll end up in the grave if we have to see Martinelli at left wing for another season. We've spent way more than Liverpool since 2020. FSG are way cheaper than KSC. Liverpool are just better run at the sporting level than us. Gyokeres gets the job done like Lewandowski. Isak is more of a flashy striker, still good though. They're both really good. The hope is that someone will have to work their butt off to cover Salah and Soboslai was. Wirtz won't. Isak won't. Ekitike won't. Fingers crossed they are more open and concede. If Liverpool are going in for Isak to compete, we need both Eze or Simmons and a left wing. if not Rodrigo. I take Leao, Gordon, Barcola, Adeyemi, or perhaps Yildiz. Not convinced of Madueke at left wing. No, I mean, the Madueke signing is just so strange. It still is to this day. I still cannot believe that we chose to make that decision, with how important this season is for us. There's just an element of Arsenal that always kind of feels arrogant in a way, where they're like, we can afford to have this obscure project where we buy a player for big money that doesn't play in the position, and let's try to make him into something instead of just buying the player. So it's strange. I just do not get the Madueke of it all. I am scared that he's the left wing. But I'm also feeling like if he's not the left wing and he's just a backup and we're still watching Martinelli and Trossard, what have we done? So both scenarios scare me for sure. And I just think we need to bring in someone else. I really do. Um, let's see. Why is this big old, I don't know, understand these flies. I need to close that door. It drives me crazy, and they just fly around me instead of flying other places. It's so annoying. Salah and Virgil van Dijk, 1 year older, Trent gone, but Poole, Chelsea, and City will be strong. Wirtz works hard. Don't be deceived. Curious, would you trade Isak for Madueke and Gyokeres? But for me personally, if these guys click, it's over for Europe. I don't know. I mean, for Madueke and Gyokeres, probably mostly just because of Madueke. But if you had any other name in there, like, Leao or Rodrigo or, Eze, then no. Because I don't know what Madueke is. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me because I don't know what this player's level is, and I just cannot see him in our team at all. But this whole trading Isak for 2 players, it's just, I mean, you guys can ask these questions to the end of the earth, but the reality is Gyokeres is our striker, so we have to start looking towards what he's going to do for us and not constantly living what is the word, like the word, living in a hypothetical. I think we like to live in hypotheticals. And again, when it comes to this particular player, it's like, I would trade in everybody. I would do this. I would do that. It's like, he doesn't play for us, bro, and never will, So I get it that this is like heartbreaking for some people, but it's like, I fear for Gyokeres just a little bit, because when people start saying things like, it doesn't matter how well he does, it's not good enough. I'm like, all right. Legendary says, Jess, you keep saying you don't understand. Try to read and check stats. The Athletic dropped a comprehensive piece, meaning about Madueke. But that's the thing, is I have the stats on Madueke and I can see it. I've put it up here multiple times. I see this. I see that he's, successful attacking actions. I can see the amount of shots that he takes. I can see the amount of dribbles and successful dribbles that he takes. I can see that he takes a lot of touches and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying that there were also a lot of stats that made Havertz look really good, and we see how that's worked out. There were comprehensive pieces done on Havertz and how he's so good off the ball, and aerially he's this, and if they could get him to his Leverkusen and all this kind of stuff, and it just ended up not working out the way that it should have, or maybe the way that they envisioned it happening. So I still don't understand, because again, here's the thing. I do not believe in having to squint to see a player being good or not. I don't want to have to be convinced. I don't want to have to read, because basically what we're saying is you're not looking at that comprehensive piece to understand more about the player. They're trying to convince you that this is a good move, because it's not easy to see that this is a good move. Everybody has to explain it and give you stats and read between the lines and squint. And I don't want to squint. If you had just brought in Rodrigo, there's no squinting. If you just bring in Eze, there's no squinting. You bring in Gyokeres outside of people that are mentally deranged, there's no squinting. So It's just the Madueke of it all is just something that is to be determined, based on how Arteta uses him, based on, his true level, because I can't really tell because like Chelsea have a lot of attackers that don't necessarily do well in that environment for some reason. But I don't really feel like Arsenal should be in this situation. I don't think that in such an important window, we should be buying anybody that you have to squint to see. Um, Madueke will flop. We just lost 55 million. Stats every day. I'm tired, man. I sometimes forget we have signed Madueke and even went back to watch his games, let alone the stat. That's the thing. I keep forgetting as well. When Don reminded me of it on Judge Mo's channel, I was kind of like, oh yeah, like we did sign him. The Gyokeres of it all kind of made me forget about it. But ultimately, he's just a very questionable signing, whether you look at stats or not. It's just questionable signing that's very, especially because they pitched it as squad depth, and then as time went on, they started soft launching. He could be played on the left, and you know the bait and switch with Arsenal is uh, we've seen it so many times, but whatever, you know. Um, but I do keep forgetting that we've signed him. And to me, I still feel like we have not signed two attackers. In my mind, we've signed one, which is Gyokeres, and we still need that other level raiser. Madueke needs to kind of just end up being just something that's there, like another player in the squad. I just do not see him being the type of level raiser on the left wing that was required when we first started the window, which is what I'm like comparing him up against. The thing is like with players like this, what often happens is like because they're so low in your mind because they've come from a certain team or they haven't performed there or whatever, that if they end up being serviceable or decent, then it's, oh, but he's good. No, just because they've, maybe um they performed better than your expectation doesn't mean that they were the answer. And so I'm looking for the answer. You know, is he the answer to the problems that we have at left wing? If he is not, the transfer failed. Transfer failed, especially if we don't get anybody else. Transfer failed. If you needed a left wing that was going to sit Martinelli on the bench and make us much better, and he ends up not playing, Martinelli ends up starting, he plays over there and he's not good, transfer failed. If he ends up just being serviceable and decent and an option amongst Trossard and Martinelli, transfer failed, because that's what we were meant to be getting. And I know somebody will say, but that's what the club didn't say that. I'm like, early on in the window, they wanted a left wing. And the names that were in that group, Nico Williams, Barcola was mentioned, Gordon was mentioned, Rodrigo, we're measuring it up against that expectation. So I'm not trying to hear this, oh, well, the club didn't really want that. You wanted that. All right. All right, bruv. Started the window expecting to chase Williams again and rumored to be monitoring Rodrigo, but Barcola also being mentioned. Leo Martinelli can't be starting versus Man U. I will never forget this Madueke signing. I was so angry. It's hard to forget. Taku says, not gonna lie, Rashford makes more sense than Nani. I mean, I really do like I really do. I won't say I like Rashford, but I've always respected his talent, and I think he's a really good player. He's probably one of the only United players that I would, or past United players that I would defend just because of we know the bullshit that he has to go through, and it's manifested itself once again that somehow he does not deserve good things because he's not who they don't like him because whatever, so I really do respect Rashford's talent and I have stocks in him doing well for Barcelona because I just cannot imagine this level of player just not ever having that moment at the top level because I do feel like he's at that level, to be honest. But I'm rooting for him and I'm hoping that he gets his career back on track. I think he was okay for Aston Villa. I think he has some good moments and some whatever moments, but for managers like Emery and Flick, good managers that know what good attackers look like. for them to want to give him a chance, I think speaks volumes to how the greater footballing world thinks of Rashford. And so I've never been the type of person to say that I think that he's ass or anything like that. I think people go too far. I think people are lying on his name. Is he frustrating? Does he have maybe some personality quirks that mean that, maybe he's not the hardest worker in training or whatever? Possibly. But I would never say that I don't think Rashford's a quality player. I'm wishing him very well at Barcelona. I hope he does good. We need Eze and left wing now, like yesterday, more so as Isak is likely to head to Liverpool. Madueke is our left wing signing. We will not sign a left winger, guys. Please stop coping. Watch Rashford is going to gladly play striker now. I would rather Saka play at left wing than Noni there. Madueke signing better work because on the bigger scale, he makes Williams look good, and I don't actually rate him. Best case, he dislodges Rafinha, and we pick up Rafinha somehow. The last team changed 4 starters and win the league city for Pete season. We've already all Kovacic and Foden. Fair enough. We'll have 2 Waka Waka chants. Please no. With Liverpool going for Isak, I would be surprised if we sell Trossard to Bayern for 45 million and get both Eze and Rodrigo. Do you think Arsenal are actually watching Liverpool and saying, oh, we need to do more? Like, I feel like maybe Arteta is thinking that way because, Arteta is probably focused on what's going on with everybody else. But I just feel like he probably goes to the Cronkies and they're like, yeah, but we spent 200 million, so we don't need any more. We have great young players coming through. We had injuries last season, so, and we got 89 points that one season. It'll go back to that because we won't have as many injuries. But ultimately, I feel like if there's anybody that's watching what's happening, it's probably Arteta and wanting more. But that's why you can't go out there and press forward on a Madueke deal because that asking for more money is going to fall on deaf ears, so whatever you have to go get the most important players. Now, if Arteta does believe that Madueke is more important than Eze, then that's what we're dealing with. If Arteta has decided that having this Madueke project is more important than trying to get somebody like Eze through the door, then that's just crazy. Alvin, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, do you even understand that Madueke can be the problem that caused us the title? That's crazy. I mean, I don't know. It just shouldn't be. It just shouldn't be. But this whole Madueke signing it's confused me so much because we just needed a left wing. If they had never even, true story, if they had never even told us anything about Eze and just went out there and got a left wing, any left wing, not any, but of a certain standard, and got Gyokeres, I probably would be just about okay. But because now that they've added this Rodrigo to it, and now they're kind of reneging on that, or we haven't heard anything about that, or they're saying that the finances are not financing. Because again, Sammy Mabel was one of the main people saying that the Rodrigo finances don't look good, but then he turned around today and said we have Isak money. I'm not trying to hear that shit, but the money is not moneying. It's just like you've spoken about Rodrigo, now you're speaking about Eze, and it's not clear whether or not we're going to get either of those positions filled. You could have just gotten a left wing and not even mentioned Eze, and I probably could have lived. But now that the Eze dream is alive and well, now I'm like, okay, so we can have him. So why not go get him? Rodrigo will cost 80 plus million plus 20 million a year. I heard Man City are out of the race for him because of his demands. Fee makes no sense in anyone's eyes. Ownership has been asleep at the wheel for years. Things won't change unless they sell up. I kind of agree with that as well. I think there's a certain ceiling to this club and this project based on the KSE and how they envision success. For them, I do feel like being in the top 4 is pretty much all they really care about. because once it gets to the point where we can actually win and push and do more and do excess, like have too much almost, they never do that. We just have just about enough to maybe just about get there, and we always fall short. And they think that that's okay. Um, and then they also have these calculators that are in the boardroom making footballing decisions without football knowledge or any sort of prioritization of winning. What they care about is the bottom line in the budget sheet. They don't care about the results on the pitch. A results on the pitch decision is to get Eze, to give us the money to get Eze, and then to just sell Trossard later. Sell him in January, sell him this summer, sell him next summer. Who cares? Because you're going to get rid of him eventually, but you need Eze tomorrow, you know? So they're not thinking about what's going to happen on the pitch. They're just like, but the Cronky said we need to make sure that we're never in a situation where, you know, because basically I think they're gun shy because of what happened during COVID, where we didn't have fans in the stands. We were financial ruin. We had all these old players on big contracts. And once they got into a healthy situation and we're back in top four, they're like, cool, good, right. You know, Havertz over Isak cost us already. Madueke over Rodrigo could again for the same. It's a big risk just to showcase project. He has no interest in trophies. I get it. Like, because to me, it's such a nuanced situation as well, where they are the main culprits, in my opinion, because it's ultimately up to them. You know, if they wanted a different manager, if they wanted to give more money, if they wanted to be more ambitious, they could. But you also have to look at who's managing those decisions once the money does come down. And like you guys said earlier, that Liverpool have operated on smaller budgets and have just done better with the money that they have. They don't go to Chelsea and buy their leftovers. They don't. They go to the Bundesliga, they go to other Premier League teams, buy really good players like this, Sadio Mane's and players like that to improve their squad instead of just giving rivals money. They buy the positions that they need to, meaning when they get really close, instead of buying a Havertz, they make sure that they buy their Virgil van Dijk, they buy their Allison. You know, we just continuously make these sideways moves that keep us from going up. They can make us kind of go like this or even a little bit like this. So yeah, it's kind of nuanced, but I still feel like they need to carry the brunt of it because they actually hired Mikel in a situation where they could have hired Luis Enrique, they could have hired Ancelotti, they could have actually went for a more ambitious manager, and they didn't. You know, so all it really just boils down to KSC are mostly to me at fault. But that doesn't preclude anybody else that's working under that umbrella from, some of the culpability, it's a great player. He can play on midfield and left wing. Yes, we are always safe plus stupid. We will never compete. Arteta elevated us, but I'm afraid the top four is the ceiling. Who is the biggest culprit, the owners or the manager? I just think that ultimately it goes straight to the top, because if they were super ambitious, Arteta wouldn't be in the job anymore. Ultimately, just that getting Arteta in general shows me that you lack ambition. And that's not to even shade Mikel because one, I think he's a really good coach. And I do think that he's lifted the levels a lot and has helped rebuild the club. But any manager really that's worth his salt that gets resources and time and barely any pressure is going to get us into top four. They just are, so there's no world in which you get Luis Enrique or Ancelotti and they don't get us into top four. Let's be real. So, I just think making that decision in itself means that you lack ambition because no club in our situation really should have been hiring a novice, but we did it and it's kind of worked and kind of hasn't. And I think having such a young manager comes with a lot of mistakes on the job that have cost us a lot, so those mistakes you can make at Everton and stuff. And, first of all, you wouldn't get the chance to make those mistakes, but you cannot be perfect. And, it is what it is. But at Arsenal, you can't afford to buy a Havertz. You really can't. You can't afford to continuously buy goalkeepers. You can't afford to, do those types of things, And so Arteta to me is somebody that, you know, was always going to make these mistakes on the job because he's new, but Arsenal didn't have to put us in a situation like this. And so he's just being what he is. He is a new-ish manager learning on the job in one of the biggest clubs, like the biggest sleeping giants, I would say. It's one of the hardest jobs in Europe right now is Arsenal. Um, and so he's just doing what we should expect, which is make mistakes because you've never managed before in a big job. You're not at a, Associate or something like that. But we didn't have to take this road. And that's where I look at the Cronkies more than anything else, because I'm like, Arteta's just doing what he can do. I think Arteta is doing his best. I don't think he's actively trying to set us up. I just think he's learning lessons that managers learn on the job, but they're bigger consequences because it's Arsenal. Arsenal are the sleeping giants of football. I would be less pessimistic if Arteta was gone and Nagelsmann was hired. If we get Eze over the line, we can't be complaining about this window. I would probably wouldn't complain about this window if we got Eze. You buy project players and not care about raising the ceiling. Havertz, Marino, project signings. You can even see Arteta getting frustrated with KSC by the way he speaks recently. And I had said this, that even though I got shit on, but I just believe it's true. Arteta's an incredibly intelligent individual, and you've known him for 5 years now, so you should understand what this level of he is very smart. And one of the things that showed me how intelligent he is how he, I would say, is able to maneuver in the media in a way that I've never really seen other managers being able to do. He rarely gets caught out. He's kind of speaks in tongues. He never really says anything clear. And he does that on purpose. And when he does say things, it's for a reason. Because for the most part, he tries to keep this like almost ambiguous kind of soft, like he doesn't really want anything to be too positive, too negative, too anything. Always in the middle. But when he says something, you need to listen to it, right? Because he doesn't speak clearly at all. For him to clearly say, we're short, we need more, things like that, is not just because, he doesn't really have to say that. Because again, he purposefully keeps like this veil over things and tries to keep, the powder dry and try to keep the heat off of KSE. But when he does something like that, I do feel like he's trying to separate himself from the blame, because he knows shit is about to hit the fan. We're short. He's watching what everybody else is doing. And he's asked the Cronkies for money. Maybe they've said no. Maybe they're still hemming and hawing on it. So he wants to make sure that people know that he feels like we need more. But, the second part of that sentence is, and if we don't get it, it's not because I didn't ask for it. It's because they didn't give it to me. Arteta's an incredibly intelligent person. And now that we've gotten far enough in the project where we probably just need 3 or 4 top quality attackers, we're so close that I do sense a frustration with Mikel that he's not as much like behind the Cronkies and they're doing so much. I do think he's trying to separate himself from the blame, because technically he doesn't really have to say that. He could say, we're short, but we'll do it, maybe just like we probably need a little bit more. But I think the way that he's saying it and the way that he continuously says it is because he wants to make sure that people understand that basically it's not me, it's them. And it's the easiest way that I can say it is he's trying to cover his ass, um, it's always been about narratives at Arsenal. Read between the lines, literally. Ethan and MLS really saved Arteta for more stress. It's not even just Ethan and MLS. It's also Saka. Remember, he inherited Saka. He also inherited Saliba. Those are you could make a very easy argument that those are our 2 best players. And he inherited both of them. What would we be had he not inherited those 2 players? I have no idea, because listen, I don't know where we'd be if he had not inherited those 2 players. Those are our 2 best players, and I don't know what we would be. I really don't. It wasn't that long ago we wonder if Saliba would come back to us. Arteta knows January was a disgrace. The owners basically sacrificed the players' health in order to not invest. I think Arteta wants to make sure that he, without saying too much, that people understand that he knows that we are short and we have not done enough. And what that does is puts the light straight on KSE and takes the light a little bit away from him. I do think it's a little bit calculated, but also I do feel like he truly does believe that, because it's true. Arteta's talent ID is about defensive players 100%. The problem with him is he signed the deal to become the second highest paid manager. If he feels he is not supported enough, he could have walked. And here's another thing with KSE is they have made this project about the manager a little bit too much for me. And this is not an Arteta thing. This is a KSC thing, because if I'm Arteta, I am signing up for 15 million a year, whether I deserve it or not. I'm not going to turn that shit down. Like, I need to support my family. I'm going to spend that amount of money. Like, or I'm going to have that type of money. I don't care. But Arsenal have made the manager the central focus of this project. Everything, and I think Yo-Yo is in the chat right now, unless Yo-Yo has already left. But Yo-Yo has said this a million times, that the project is more about Mikel than it is about the talent. And that has been a problem. Everything about this is about when he becomes world class, everything will just come together. We need to just stick with him, get him what he wants. And I'm not sure that I would have went in this direction. If I was going to do this, I would have went for a manager that had already won things and had shown that they have the capability to become the best in the world. Do you get what I'm saying? So they've made him the central focus of the project, given him a lot of money. And he is just a novice manager, making mistakes, doing some good things, doing some not so great things on the job for a club that is a sleeping giant that really needs to get back to winning things. And so it's not really just about him. I really do think KSC needs to hold a lot of the corn here. Jess, would you be happier as Arsenal fans if we had the same window we've had so far, minus Madueke? I feel like the answer is yes. Less is more in that case. Yeah, I think so. I just don't see it. And maybe this could come back and bite me, and I want it to, but I just don't see him as like anything special or anything that's going to help us out. Like, he's just a body, So yeah, probably. Jess, do you think Arsenal are the most pressured team to win silverware in world football? I do personally think. I can't think of anyone who needs it more than us. Yeah, I think so. We haven't won anything in 5 seasons. We haven't won a major in over 20 years now. So, yeah, we've never won a Champions League. It's us, and I think for a team that a lot of people, if you ask them right now, is Arsenal a top team in Europe? They would say so. Leao said it yesterday. Allegri said it yesterday. Everybody knows that we're a great team, but can we get it over the line is the question. And we haven't done that yet. So, and that's the worst part, which we've spoken about multiple times, is being this good, but not being able to get it over the line is much more difficult to take than being 8th, So yeah, but listen, guys, I have an appointment to get my eyebrows done and my hair done. Yay. So I need to go. This is only going to be a short one, but let's reconvene tomorrow morning. Let's see if Gyokeres gets announced. I don't think he will. I don't think he'll get announced till Saturday maybe, but we'll see. And see if we get some developments on Eze. But you guys know we're rolling with these dailies, So hopefully we have some news. But even if we don't, we'll just talk shit to each other. Let's be real. That's what this community is, right? Just talking and chilling, So enjoy the rest of your day. Make sure you guys like and subscribe on the way out, and we'll talk soon. Bye, guys.